Happening today, new gun laws take effect in Michigan. They include new safe storage rules, expanded background checks, and new domestic violence regulations. There are also new red flag laws, which take firearms away from those who are in crisis. Joining us now is Chelsea Parsons, Senior Director of Implementation at Everytown for Gun Safety. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So first, we want to talk about the red flag laws. A lot of times when we see these unfortunate shootings take place, one of the first questions is, were there any warning signs? How exactly do these red flag laws work?
So these red flag laws are really designed to give people an option to act when there are warning signs that a person may be in crisis and may be posing a risk of harm either to themselves or to someone else. So what this law does is it creates the opportunity for law enforcement, for family members, and for some medical providers to petition a court for a civil order that will temporarily relieve that person from having access to firearms. And so when this order is in effect, the person will have to surrender any guns they already own and will be prevented from buying new guns for the limited time period that the order is in effect. And what this law is intended to do is create the opportunity to step in when we can see those warning signs before we have to wait for a tragedy to occur.
Okay, and exactly how does the process work? Because I know that the intentions are good, but there are some gun owners who are concerned about this infringing on their rights in some cases.
Absolutely. So this law was written to have really robust protections in place to protect the due process rights of gun owners. And so this process begins by going to court and by filing a petition that will be reviewed by a judge. The petition has to include really specific information and facts about why we believe this person poses a risk of harm to themselves or others. A judge will then review that petition and make the determination as to whether or not this order should be issued. Only at that point, after a judge reviews and makes that determination, will a person be asked to surrender any firearms. And again, a red flag order is only temporary. These orders can last for only up to a year. And so the intent here really is to just provide that temporary crisis intervention option when there are really specific facts demonstrating that a person is in crisis and poses a risk.
Would you say there are any misconceptions with that law specifically? If so, what are they?
I think that point about, that a gun owner will have their guns taken from them without any kind of due process. I think that's probably the primary misconception about these laws. And again, this order can only be issued after it's been reviewed by a judge. And so it's not the case that, this law can be used to harass or threaten a neighbor that you're having an argument with, for example. This is a really well thought out law. It includes a really specific process that has to be followed, including review by a judge. And so I think that, gun owners in Michigan should be confident that this law really will be used only in those limited cases where you have evidence that a person really is in crisis and really does pose a risk of harm, not only to others, but to themselves. What we've seen in other states that have enacted this law is it's used quite often to prevent suicide. And so it's a really important tool, and it really is intended to just provide that way to act when folks close to somebody are really sensing that there is a crisis.
Sure. And gun safety is a conversation that's being had across the country and has been for years now. How are you feeling overall just about the new laws that we're seeing here in Michigan?
The way that we saw the legislature and the governor take action in Michigan last year really represents, I think, what we're seeing around the country, which is people are tired, and people are tired of being worried about sending their kids to school and tired of being worried about, going out to a bar or a club or a movie theater, particularly when we know that there are things that we can do, there are laws that we can pass that really help reduce the risk of gun violence. And so, we were feeling really strongly about what Michigan has done in the wake of these horrific tragedies in the state. And we think that these new laws really will help provide additional tools to communities across the state that will have an impact in reducing and preventing gun violence.
Yep, there has certainly been a call for change. Chelsea Parsons, Senior Director of Implementation at Everytown for Gun Safety. Chelsea, thank you again for being with us.
Thank you.